What is up, jabronis? JJ back here from Run Pure Sports, Run Pure Bets, talking a little dirt track racing, Food City Dirt Race. Interesting, right? It's a night race. I know we ran this last year, and I don't know for the folks that might remember or not, I was like heavily tilting on Twitter this race last year. I don't even understand why they race on dirt. Like there was so many accidents and so many spinouts. I guess it obviously element of surprise kind of thing. It does make it different. It's a fun elemental thing in relation to the holiday as well. And they run it at night. I'm sure it's correlated that they do it on Easter, whatever. But yes, definitely different, right? You don't have a whole lot of data to go off of. They only started doing this in 2021, after they did it like 50 years ago or whatever it was. But they brought it back in 2021, a bit of a nightmare. And then last year's race was, I think there was multiple, either there was a lot of cautions, if I remember, or there was like a lot of delays. But then again, like dirt, you can race on dirt in rain. So I think there was just a lot of cautions. But yeah, either way, buckle up for tonight's race. It's going to have its heavy elements for sure. But I do think, with all things considered, that there are some edges to be had and some leverage pivots for ownership as well. But as usual, yeah, I don't have Jason, I don't have Coop with me, but it's okay. I have their data. I'm going to go through Coop's playbook for this show, also give my tidbits as well on certain things. And guys, I'll be overweight on, guys, I'll be underweight on as we talk through this slate in terms of where to take your shots, more or less, right? I think ownership is going to be relatively scattered outside of a few place differential guys in the back. And I'll talk on, whether you want to go Larson or Reddick or Bell. It's going to be hard to get two of them in the lineup, and it's going to feel nearly impossible to get all three of them in the same lineup. So, as far as who do we go with, or who do we play, who do we mix and match with? Like, just to put it into perspective, right? If you start your lineup with the two quote unquote best guys on dirt in terms of Larson and Reddick, and even that too, right? Like best on dirt. I mean, the sample size is remarkably small, right? I mean, it's hard to kind of justify it or quantify it, but definitely Reddick and Larson, regardless, are in the conversation to be well above the top or at the top. But yeah, look, if you play them two together, the rest of your lineup gets a little hazy, doesn't it? And because there's I think 250 total laps here as far as points go, and there's going to expect to be a lot of cautions, and you don't get fastest lap times during cautions. So yeah, while there is 250 laps of points to go around for laps led and some, of course, fastest laps, it's just not going to feel as many, right? It's tough to obviously pass as well on dirt. But needless to say, you're going to need a Dominator too, at least. So I think the big decision you're going to have to make as you're building your lineups, and I'll talk through it as well. Bell, Reddick, Larson. Bell is likely to see the lowest ownership out of the three. Neither of these guys are going to see crazy ownership either. Maybe like sub 20%-ish. But we'll talk on some of that as well. What's up, Brittany? JJ Yelly starting third, easy full fade. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to play him. I mean, he's 4,900 in the third slot, and he's basically projected to be in dead last. Actually, they have him at 80-1 to win, which is kind of crazy because he's like practically drawn dead. He would need like an absolute collapse around him all over the place. So either way, we'll talk through this slate. And happy Easter, everyone. I know that some of you might have been coming from the baseball show and you've already been wished a happy Easter. But again, in 2023, we just give everybody compliments all the time. And it's just how life is. So yes, happy Easter. Yes, Corey, it's a solo show. So really going to test my attrition here. And attrition makes sense, right, for a NASCAR show, and especially a dirt track. I will tell you this, though. Look, I know I say this all the time, right? But for a track like this, play within your means. This is not the type of track to be going way overweight on in terms of your financials. There is just so much that's likely going to go wrong in this race. And that's why, I'm going to talk on good pivots and good spots to try to be different. And as you're building lineups, finding those spots to be said different. Because you're going to see ownership, kind of scattered around the same dudes in this race, relatively similar anyway. But look, let's just get this party started, right? Obviously, Coop's not here, but I'm going to run through his playbook. And look, obviously, you can view the playbook yourself at runpuresports.com. There's not a whole lot going on at 7 o'clock tonight, right? I mean, you got the one baseball game. You have the Masters basically coming to a close around that time. So yeah, I mean, I expect all these pools to fill up with ease. I was surprised they didn't go bigger, DraftKings, with some of these pools. FanDuel never goes big with them anyway. But I was surprised DraftKings didn't go bigger because just the way people are wired, like there's just not a lot going on at 7. Your Easter festivities are likely dying down anyway, unless you're completely shit-faced So yeah, I'm surprised they didn't make these bigger pools. Like even the 444, max entry six, 200, I think 200 P. Like I've seen the 444 as big as 400 entries, 500 entries. Feel like they would have gotten it to fill even if they did 350. But needless to say, it is what it is. But yeah, let's talk on some of these dominators, right? So Kyle Larson comes off his win last week, right? I think he won last week, right? Yeah. So had a little good fortune his way in certain ways. Last two races back to back have had a tremendous amount of cautions late. And look, I'll be honest, this dirt track, if these cautions start cascading and you start seeing, one or two cautions towards the end of this race, that could easily balloon to 5 or 6. You restart on these dirt tracks with these quick turns, people are just going to take risks and weird shit's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, expect more crazy attrition in a race like this, especially as the race goes later and later. Yeah, Kyle Larson typically picked as a de facto dude on dirt. Again, I just don't. Not to say I don't buy it. I just think there's a lot there to decipher. That there's not a whole large sample of data for dirt tracks. And while Larson Reddick have been good, like I look back, right? So what we talk, we'll start with 2021, right? The 2021 standings had what Larson finish in. I think he got into an accident though because he didn't even run the same amount of laps. He finished in 29th. And then last year he starts in 5th and ends in what he ended in 4th, 27 laps led. That was likely not good enough to put him in the optimal. I don't remember, but looking at who was in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Larson 27 laps led. Daniel Suarez with 64 laps led, finishing 12th. He was likely in the optimal as well. So yeah, I mean, you're going to see people take chances here, right? You're going to see people stay out for certain stages, not pit. Obviously, not as much crazy tire wear here. So yeah, I mean, you're just going to see different approaches as far as strategy goes. That's why And here's the thing, like, so actually, I'll wait to talk on that a little further. But let's just talk on Larson, right? So Larson Reddick for me. I want Reddick over Larson. He's cheaper, got better place differential, points or upside. To me, he's got more upside in general. So to me, it's likely going to be a full Larson fade for me today. Look, if Larson beats me here, he beats me. But man, like he's just not going to lead as many laps as you would hope because again, people are going to take different pitting strategies here. So even if he takes the whole first stage, because look, he's going up against Dillon and Yelly at the front. I mean, yeah, Bell might catch him, but likely not, right? So Larson's going to lead the first handful of laps. I just think that there's a decent shot he goes backwards from there and then doesn't reclaim the top spot. He could. I just think when I'm looking at here, 15% ownership, Tyler Reddick's just slightly higher. Give me Reddick. And look, Christopher Bell has proven to be pretty decent on dirt as well. I just think it's a price issue, right? Like, so Bell obviously didn't finish in the optimal last year. And then Chris Bell 2 years ago, I don't even – did he even race 2 years ago? He did. He finished way back. He had a crash, I believe. Didn't even finish the race. But, yeah, call that a little bit of unluck. To me, I'd much rather have Reddick in this race out of the three. And again, it's like I said, it's hard to get two of these guys in the same lineup. I think in theory it can make you different. But if you play two of them, or God forbid you play three of them, man, the rest of your lineup is going to look like dog shit. So, yeah, for me, I'm picking one of the three, and it's going to be Reddick for me. Very well could be. Bell to me, just to put it in my pecking order, it would be Reddick, Larson, and then Bell. The reason I would value Larson over Bell is because I do think obviously Larson gets in front, gets those easy laps led to begin the race, and then look, obviously pitting strategies are going to put him further back early in the race, and then I'm sure he'll work his way back up towards the top 3, top 4, top 5 bar and doesn't get into any accidents. But again, as far as you talk on upside, like Reddick to me just makes the most sense out of the three, and just fade the rest. Now, Chase Briscoe is likely to be somewhat popular. That price is just ridiculous, to be honest. I get it. He can get there. And let me look at ownership, or at least ownership projections on him. What are we looking at here? So Chase Briscoe, 20% ownership. Again, these guys that are 10K and above, it's just hard to plug and play two of them, right? Like, and I'll talk on guys like Logano, who I really like. Like Byron to me is another easy fade. Like again, these guys can beat me today, but I don't want any part of them. Briscoe is great in these types of tracks, right? Like forget dirt. Like these tipsy turny type tracks, like Briscoe's always good. But again, you are paying top notch dollar for him. And just what you need out of him today, you're going to need him to lead a bunch of laps. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like guys, like again, when you play DFS or even bet sports in general, like you're trying to project people's ceilings and floors. And Chase Briscoe at this price is just to me crazy. Um, Again, he can get there, but like it's one thing if his price is this high and because his price is so high, his ownership slides. He's still going to be like 15-20% owned. Like, so yeah, it becomes an easy kind of fade for me. And again, you got to take your stands, right? Like if Chase Briscoe beats me today, he beats me, but at 10-2, he can beat me. It's fine. I can care less. All right. So I already walked you down my path there. And as far as like the playbook, two people that um Coop mentioned, obviously, that I did not. So a guy like Kyle Busch, right? Like he's 97. Like to me, I'd rather play a guy like Kyle Busch at 97, 100% more than a guy like Chase Briscoe at 10-2. I know that Kyle Busch is a huge wild card where like you kind of know you're going to get the best version of Briscoe today. At least you should. But Kyle Busch, complete wild card. I will have some Kyle Busch today, not a lot, but I definitely will have some. And as I look at ownership for Busch, 10%, 11%. Like, are we joking? So like Busch is going to be 12%, and Briscoe is going to be 20, nearly double. Like, I mean, give me a break. Like, yeah. So I'd rather take a shot with a guy like Kyle Busch. And you look at the finishes. Like Kyle Busch won this race last year, and granted, some of it was good fortune, right? He led one entire lap, the last one. But in reality, like he was just around, right? That's all you need to be is just kind of hang around. But then when these two, when they raced a few years back, like Kyle Busch, um, ended up finishing in 17th. I'm not sure where he started in fourth, finished in 17th. So not great data there. But needless to say, nothing to go crazy over, right? But yeah, definitely give me Kyle Busch over a guy like Christopher Bell at the price, right? Because that's ultimately what really matters. And then a guy like Dominators, right? So Austin Dillon starting in second. Look, Austin Dillon. If I'm Austin Dillon, I'm doing everything in my power to jump out to a lead in the beginning of this race, right? I just don't know if he's going to be good enough to do it, right? But yeah, if he can jump off to a lead in this race, that will prove big for him throughout the stretch of this race, right? Because he's cheap, right? He's 7,400. He's got 20-1 odds to win. He's not bad in this area of racing, right? Like he's not excellent, but he's also not terrible by any means. I'm just trying to see where he finished last year. It looks like he finished 12th. I don't have the data for. Oh no, he started 12th. And where did he finish? He finished. He finished way down the board. No, he finished 10th. Like kind of respectable, right? Not crazy good, not crazy bad, respectable. I think when you look at it from where he's positioned, though, right? Like he's going to probably get chased down by Bell. Almost inevitably, he's going to get chased down by Reddick. So that's why I'm saying like he's got to start the race in front. Like if he's going to have any chance to win this race. So I think overall, to me, I will fade Dillon, but I do see the upside. I think knowing what we know, right? Like to me, Dillon should do everything in his power to take the lead and then win the first stage. I don't think it's crazy to bet him to win the first stage. I don't have that the betting option in front of me, stage one winner, because I know a lot of like the FanDuel and Draftkings have kind of taken out some of these derivatives. Bet365, I think, still has them. Because look, if he has any chance of winning this race, he's got to be in first at the end of the first stage. Because otherwise, once he loses the lead to Larson or concedes the lead to Larson for that matter, he's likely just going to get passed by the others behind him as the race goes along. So yeah, ultimately, those are guys that have obviously Dominator potential, but yes, overall, not in love with it. And you bring up a good point, Phil. Briscoe with a broken finger. That's not easy by any means, right? I don't think a lot of people know that either, which maybe everybody does. Like I'm sure it's common knowledge in certain woods, but yeah. So either way, easy fade for me. The fade is more on the price, though. To me, broken finger, sure, it's a big deal in its own right, but it's just a price thing. Not to say Briscoe can't win the race. Of course he can win this race, and of course he can perform well. I just think he's priced way too high for the spot. What do you think? At least two in the top 10, maybe three. I think the top 10 may look similar end of race. So as far as Otter, you're more talking on starting position, right? I kind of opened the talks starting on price points, but if we're talking on just starting position in general, let me just sort my stuff by starting position. Yeah, so I'm gonna give a few names that people may like, that people may not like. And we'll talk on these more as we go. I do like Reddick a ton today. And I've already mentioned the fact that Larson's a fade for me. Christopher Bell isn't as much of a fade because he's a little cheaper and he has brings some place differential. But man, Christopher Bell has just been like struggling, and I think that like the idea of him like finding it here, and to be clear, when I say struggling, right, like I mean like ability to land in an optimal. Like, granted, he like kind of bird shit on his windshield into fourth place last week. Last week was just a weird race, right, with all the weird um things that happened at the end with all the cautions. I mean, you look at Christopher Bell in his last 5 races, right? No worse than sixth. But like, how many of those has he actually been in the optimal for? He should have been in the well. Actually, last week he was priced high, and Larson had all the laps led and in first. I don't I don't know if Bell was in the optimal last week. I mean, 70 likely put him in the optimal. Um, but I know Larson outscored him. So and he wasn't cheap, right? So a little more expensive here. Again, you got to pick your poison. Bell has been good at being really good. I think at his price, though, expecting him to be elite today, I think is a lot to ask. But look, he's always live. I will have some Bell. Just to me, the Larson is the Larson just a complete fade. In relation to who else in there, so I'll talk more on this as the show goes on. But like, to me, this is kind of a Ryan Blaney type of day, right? Like, you look at his price. Um, Look at his price. He's 95. And by the way, you guys should know by now, I hate playing Ryan Blaney, but you get sub 10% Ryan Blaney. And on dirt, where as silly as it sounds, he's been okay on dirt. I know, again, we talk on the sample size being small, right? But you're talking he starts in 25th last year, right? He ends the race in fifth, right? So just to be clear, that would have put him, likely should have put him in that optimal. Then you talk last year, I mean, in 2021, Blaney starts in third, finishes in eighth. Not terrible, not great. I don't know what he was priced, but again, not terrible. Okay. I think overall, when you talk about leverage pivots in terms of guys inside the top 10, I think Blaney makes a lot of sense. Like, he's tough. He's tough to pick. You look at his scoring, and we talked on how consistent Christopher Bell has been. Ryan Blaney's been almost the exact opposite, right? Like, he's just hit and miss. And in the United 500 where he finished in second, I don't even know if that put him in the optimal because he didn't really have any laps led. Um, but like, yeah, I mean, the guy just has been struggling this year. But again, this is an opportunity for him to play well. He won, the heat race yesterday. And again, I think he's just been good, like on dirt in this limited sample. So yes, I don't play Blaney every week. I've already said to you guys, when you sub 20% owned, it's always a fade. Sub 10 to 12% owned, call me a fan. Call me a fan today of Ryan Blaney. I will definitely be overweight the field. Likely, to be honest, looking at the ownership projections, I'll likely be 3 times the weight on him. I'm going to be looking to have about 36, 37% Ryan Blaney today. Other guys in the mix, I don't really consider much threats. Like I said, I already said I'm not a Byron guy today. To me, he's an easy fade. Priest is interesting, right? He's had some decent showings. He's 7K. If he finishes in the position he starts in, there's a decent chance he could land in the optimal at his price. I'll just be honest, like at the price, I'd probably rather play Cindric. Who's starting above him. But again, it's hard to just like love anything around these guys here up at the top, just because there's so many people that are likely going to pass them. And you lose the place differential there. So yeah, ultimately, I think they're all tough plays to love in the top 10. But as far as dominators go in the top 10, yeah, for me, my favorites, definitely Reddick and Blaney in that grouping. And I will have some Kyle Busch, and I will have a little bit of Bell, but yeah, consider those two my favorites, pound for pound, price included, upside included, inside the top 10. Those are who I really like. All right, so let's move over to, we already talked on some dominators, guys that can lead laps. Let's talk on place differential drivers, right? So good old Ricky Stenhouse. Okay, so we often talk, right, I often talk on how these guys have ceilings, how these guys have floors. and trying to, articulate that as it relates to price points. Ricky Stenhouse is priced ridiculous, like absolutely ridiculously high today. You're talking a guy that typically is priced in the 6K range. Okay, occasionally he squeaks higher pricing, like at spots like super speedways, they price him up a bit. But man, like 8,900 for Ricky Stenhouse. You want to talk about a guy getting priced at his ceiling, right? This is a tough sell. Now I get it, right? Win equity wise, 30 to 1 to win. He's starting from what, sub 20th, right? Like where is he starting from? He's starting from 22nd place, right? You look at who's around him, right? So here's my issue. When you build lineups, right, you're trying to figure out, well, who do I want to play? If I'm not going to play Stenhouse in this price range, well, who would I play around him? I mean, look at some of the names around him. You got Denny Hamlin, Marty Truex, Bowman, Harvick, Daniel Suarez, who's much cheaper, who's going to be super chalky, by the way. Ryan Blaney, who I've already talked on. You got Kyle Busch, who's slightly priced higher, 800 more. Logano, who I'll talk a lot on because I'm a big Logano guy today. It just, to me, look, I find it hard to click his name today based on his price point. And then I look at the ownership numbers on him. And I mean, 22%, Ricky Stenhouse, like, woof. That's a lot. Now I get it. He's proven to be decent on these tracks. 2022? Where did he start in 2022? So he started in 16th and he finished. Where did he finish? He finished in 29th, blah. But of course, he had some car troubles. Didn't even finish the needed amount of laps. But then look, 2021, he finishes second, right? He started in 13th, finished in second. So are we overanalyzing that performance? Maybe. I don't know. I just feel like there's more consistency you can get today. Look, Ricky could. I want to be clear. Ricky could definitely win this race. I just when you take him in terms of leverage ownership, his price, man, like it's a lot to take in. He's 8,900. Based on value alone, there's a good shot he could lead laps, right? Especially if he plays the stages, in his own way, where he stays out when other people go in. But man, I just feel like a lot has to go right for him today at this price to land him in an optimal. And then when you add in the fact that he's owned at 22%, like I would have loved, like to me, when Ricky Stenhouse is priced like this, he should be like sub 8-9% owned. And if he is, then I'd take advantage of the upside that he could have. This price though, this ownership, easy fade for me. He beats me. But no thank you on Ricky Stenhouse today. People that play him, good luck. And Philip brings up a good point too with Blaney. Like you're going to get no live pits today. And pits just completely kill Sir Blaney. So yeah, it's I think it's a good spot for Blaney. We will see. You're right, Drake. He's been terrible, Blaney. But again, this is the type of track where there's so much attrition in it that, like, I don't know. I don't need the best version of Blaney today. So I'm cool with it at the price and at the ownership. Like, here's the thing: twice as many people today, very likely. Maybe not twice as much. Maybe that's a little egregious, but we'll call at least 1.5 times as much. People are going to play 8,900 Ricky Stenhouse than Ryan Blaney. Like, I mean, give me a break. So yeah, easy play for me with Blaney. To stick in lineups, and to me, again, an easy fade in Stenhouse. Stenhouse beats me, he beats me. But again, I feel very confident. You race this race 100 times. I mean, Blaney's going to be in the optimal far less than 21% of the time. To me, Ricky Stenhouse likely lands himself in the optimal 5 to 10 times out of 100 races. Not the 22% ownership he's going to see today, or 20%. So yeah, again, easy pass for me in that regard. All right, so Daniel Suarez. Now, Daniel Suarez is likely to be arguably the most popular driver on the slate. And for some good reason, right? Like, the dude has proven to be pretty good in this area. So we go to 2022, right? Daniel Suarez starts the race in 21st. Daniel Suarez ends the race in 12th, and he led 64 laps. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would assume from where he started from and where he ended and with the laps led, I would presume he landed himself in the optimal. But again, I guess I can't pinpoint that exactly. Then the race separate from that, or in 2021, he starts in 18th, he finishes in 4th, and led 58 laps, undoubtedly was in the optimal then. This is his type of shtick, and Suarez, look, I don't like to eat the chalk when it's going to be as high as Suarez is likely going to be owned. But I'm going to be very clear. Like Suarez is like a borderline lock button today. Like borderline lock button. He beat you. He beat you. But the dude's going to be. I mean, what am I seeing here? Like 40% ish, maybe higher. Yeah, likely higher than 40% in the high stakes. I'm sure he'll be over 50%. You just, again, you look at who's around him price range, right? So and that's really what matters, right? So Suarez, 8,100. Harvick, who struggled on this surface or this type of track. Chris Buescher, blah. Joshua Berry, who, I'm sure people might be high on him. He finishes in second. Like, let's be very clear, right? He finishes in second last week because of a well-timed pit strategy, right? Which in reality, if there's no accident that happens, this dude wasn't even going to finish in the top 20. Okay. He was slowly but surely losing time on laps. I was actually watching the race and I had a decent amount of Josh Berry ownership. I was over the field for sure on Berry. And I'm watching the race last week and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, Pitt, you fucking moron. Like, what is going on? Like, people just consistently kept passing him. And then again, magically, he gets the gratuitous accident before the pits and is able to pit and then, finds himself back in whatever it was, 7th or 8th. And then more accidents kind of got him closer and closer to the front. So it worked out for him. He had a good pit stop too. But yes, I'm not a Berry guy. And look, obviously had the good finish last week, but let's be honest, it was quite lucky, right? I mean, the accident happened to push him up to the front at the right time. He didn't pit, and anyway, that accident doesn't happen. It doesn't even involve him, and he likely finishes in 20th place or 19th place. So, not a big Berry guy. I think attrition can land him towards the front, kind of like what happened last week in theory. But yeah, not a big Berry guy per se. But again, another guy that's got place differential today, starting in 31st. But yeah, for me, it's more of Suarez than anything. And Izzy, like, here's the thing: like, you call it sharp now, but man, in the moment, like, if you were watching that race live, like, I was literally saying, "What are we doing, Pit?" I mean, Jesus, like, the accidents weren't happening. Like, attrition is not super common at that track anyway. Like, it was just like wild to see him stay out that long, but it worked out. It worked out because of the accident. But yeah, it was kind of wild. And again, it worked out. But again, situations like that. And here's the thing: it's like people were saying it was an absolute gem. Like, if you're Josh Berry, it was his only chance to win the race. Like, it got to the point where they stuck with that strategy so long for the wrong reasons that they actually pulled themselves out of contention of the entire race. Josh Berry was inside the top 12, top 13, and then obviously changed their pitch strategy. And they did it because it was their only shot to win the race, and they got the lucky accident their way, and it worked out. But yeah, ballsy indeed, and good for them with the finish. But man, it was tilting watching it live because I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Every one of these cars is going to pass you. You've lost seconds because you haven't pitted. But yes, it did work out. I can't. Yeah, Izzy, I can't speak to this. I don't know about when Hamlin does it. It's genius. I don't really speak like that. So I don't know, but yeah, I thought that was that was definitely working. It definitely had some lady luck gratuitous for him. I know some people mentioned Hamlin, so I don't. So I look at Hamlin, his ownership. So I thought I saw it. I mean, you're talking 35% ownership on Denny Hamlin. I am not a Hamlin guy today. Easy fade for me. I have 0% Denny Hamlin. Not racing well. He's going to be super high owned. And on these tracks, let's see. Obviously, again, the sample size is short, right? He starts in 34th last year. He finishes in 35th. Didn't even finish the race. Plenty of accidents. Then he starts in second and finishes in third, leading one total lap in 2021. I don't know. I'm not a Denny Hamlin guy today. Again, look, here's the thing with me, right? With me, you're going to get stands. Okay. I expect folks to disagree with them. Sometimes you guys will agree with them, but with me, you're going to get stands. Denny Hamlin to me is a fade today. When you include his ownership, when you include his price, I don't want 40% Hamlin. I mean, look, I want to be very clear, like, just to be clear, because like people make this claim, like, oh, you make these stands, it's like, oh, you got to be right, you got to be like, I'm okay being wrong, like, it's fine. I might be wrong on Hamlin today, but I'm going to completely fade him at that percentage of ownership. It's just crazy to me. Like at people are lining up to play 9,100 Denny Hamlin at 36% ownership, right? Joey Logano, who's been really good in his short instances on dirt tracks, starting from 12th, price slightly higher, less than half the ownership. Like, this is what I mean. Like, to me, like, you want to talk on pivots, and I get it, the place differential, but you still got to pick your spots. Like, this is a track that has a lot of laps led as points. Your whole lineup's not going to be all place differential guys, right? So if you're playing a guy like Denny Hamlin, maybe you're also playing Suarez, but then that likely means you're not playing guys like, I guess, guys like Boucher, Keselowski. You can't be playing Ricky Stenhouse at that point, right? Because then where are your guys at the top that are actually going to lead laps? Like, so yeah, I don't know. I think in terms of lineup construction, yeah, you play a guy like Denny Hamlin. You're likely going to play you're likely going to play a value place differential guy, and then you got to stick guys with him at the top. You'd have to play a guy like maybe that's where you play a guy like Austin Dillon. You mix him with Kyle Larson or something to that effect. But yeah, based on price and leverage ownership, give me guys like Logano and Blaney over Hamlin today. Again, if it beats me, it beats me. But I do think over time, it's just a better strategy today. Joey is a much better play. That's what I'm saying. Is he like, I get it. People are going to agree and disagree. I get it. But you got to leverage ownership and price, and you got to leverage it all in your favor. But yeah, to me, if you're playing Hamlin, who's already kind of chalky, and you're playing Suarez, who's going to be super chalky, man, your lineup ain't that different. So you're going to play them two guys. You better stick a guy that's going to be sub 10% owned in that lineup. Over a season, or are we trying to win today? But I guess that's what I'm getting at, we the people. Like, if you take every race as an isolated incident, it's just hard to fathom you winning, because if you're taking every race as an isolated incident, you're going to be playing a lot of chalk in a sport where a lot of chalk doesn't get there. So I don't look at it. I don't look at it like that specifically. And yeah, I lose a lot of slates, but then there's a lot of slates where I have a lot of options. A lot of lineups where I'm live to win a lot of money. And I'd rather play it that way. Granted, variance is what it is, but I respect how people play their own sports and do their own thing, but just kind of, giving you some perspective. I want to be clear, no right, wrong. However you want to do it is all good. But either way, I always love the constructive conversations for sure. And appreciate the chatter in the chat. It's always makes it fun, especially when I'm doing this solo, right? So appreciate the feedback. All right, so drivers we're looking for a good finish from. Now, I've already kind of stated my claim. Logano, Blaney, two guys I'm going to be way over the field today. I already mentioned 3 times the field on Blaney. I'm looking at Logano's ownership at 15%. It's a little higher than Blaney. I'm definitely going to be 3 times the weight on Logano today. Logano just makes a lot of sense, right? Like, he's been kind of hit and miss this year. He has found himself in a few optimals this year. I'm really not a Logano guy. But again, you look at it. So like last week, he finishes in 7th, kind of lucky, to be honest. He didn't race well last week, but he had the attrition in his favor. He finishes first and a second with the Daytona stuff months back. He wins the M better from the pole. I typically don't like Logano when he starts from this like middle-ish pack, because I don't love his ability to pass. But he's proven on these tracks, like, he's just been good. Like, Logano starts in 10th last year. I think he wins the race, right? Or he finishes in 3rd, which is great. Doesn't lead any laps, but finishes in 3rd. And then wins the race in 2021, starting from 10th. Leads 61 laps. He makes a ton of sense today at his ownership, at his place differential. Look who's priced around him, right? So he's 98. And you always want to think about who's clicking the buttons around him, right? So I don't think many people are going to click Blaney, but like I do think people are going to click Byron's name. We already know people are going to click Briscoe's name. And it's just when you think about it, right? Like most people, like most of your lineup constructs today are going to have one of the 3, right? They're going to have either Larson, Reddick, or Bell, right? Most lineups, obviously not all, but most are going to have one of these 3 drivers, right? So when you think about them having one of those 3 drivers, then the next question becomes, well, who's the next driver, right? So the next drivers on most lineups is like going to be Suarez or Hamlin, right? Because you're going to want a good place differential guy, good guy that's decently priced. And when you do that, like let's say Larson, Hamlin, right? Start your lineup. It's got Larson. It's got Hamlin. Okay. You're now down to 7,500 for 4 slots, right? So now things get tricky as you're building your lineup, or even if you're using an optimizer, things get really tricky. Okay. Um, like who do you go with? You got to go with a guy like McDowell at 64, which I'll talk on him. I do like him today. You go with a guy like Priest, who's got some decent value at 7K. We'll talk a little bit on Bubba Wallace in a bit. Keselowski's got some place differential at 76, but that's still that 76 number hurts you, right? Because then you still need to go even less on the guys underneath. I just think it's tough overall to build lineups in that fashion. And look, you can be different by just fading those top 3 drivers, Bell, Reddick, Larson, in terms of the price. You fade them 3, and yeah, doors open up as far as your options go. But yeah, so Logano's a big play for me. Looks better than LeBron's fake hairline. Somehow Logano won the ship last year magically. Yeah, Logano. I know Logano wins a few races, and all of a sudden the hairline comes back. You love to see it. All right. So I already talked on Logano. I'm not going to keep talking on Blaney. I already mentioned I like him. Alex Bowman, interesting today, right? Bowman has really, maybe it's my own bias. Like he's been struggling. I get it. Like if you look at his finishes, he keeps finding ways to get there. But much like anything else, like Bowman's just been a safe driver, right? I mean, like he just consistently finishes races. The interim crew chief suspended 2 races. So, Bowman and Byron are going to be dealing with some pit crew issues. I don't think that's going to matter today, but I guess it's just worth noting. But yeah, I mean, you look at Bowman, right? A top 9 finish, and I mean, basically he's only finished outside the top 9 in 2 total races this year. So model citizen for consistency. So in cash, I'm all for a Bowman play today. I know we don't talk on cash often, right? But Bowman's just a model citizen of consistency, especially when he's starting from this spot. He's 18% figure to be about ownership-wise today. Don't mind Bowman. I'm going to have some Bowman. Definitely not going to be overweight on Bowman. I have trouble figuring out his upside because while he's been very consistent, he's not landing himself in optimals. I think the Pennzoil was the last time he was in an optimal. So yeah, look, could he get there? I guess, but I don't know. Not in love with the idea of being overweight on Bowman today. It does make sense. Again, he's safe, but I'm just going to either be at the field or slightly underweight on Bowman today. And just so you know, these are guys. Obviously, I'm reading off of Coop's end. Chase Briscoe. We've already talked about it, right? I just think he's not priced correctly today, and it makes him tough to play, in my opinion. I get it. Upside's there. But he's just tough to play for me. Bubba Wallace. Good old Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace cost me a lot of money this year. I play Bubba Wallace every week. And I hate myself for it. Every week, this guy. So, and the guy is seriously very unlucky in certain ways. Like, I know he races poorly at times. Last week, he was racing really well. Like, really well. And his pit crew fucked him pretty bad, and then he couldn't get his track position back afterwards. It just feels like he's just going through some serious growing pains right now. And if you're saying Wallace has made me, I was gonna say, I'm like, if Wallace has made you some money, it couldn't be because you've been playing him. I don't know. He's priced fun, like he's priced in an area where he's playable for sure. I don't know. I mean, like, let me look at where he starts. So he starts in what, 2020, starts in 22nd. He finishes in 28th, right, in 2022. And then in 2021, he starts in 19th. He finishes in 27th. Like, this guy hasn't been great on these tracks, and he's not racing confidently either. The only, like, to me, the only saving grace is, and this is an opposite saving grace to the Ricky Stenhouse take. Like, Ricky Stenhouse is way overpriced. Bubba Wallace is underpriced, right? I mean, you're getting Bubba Wallace at a cheap price today. But man, a struggling driver, dealing with confidence issues, racing on a track that he has practically no success on. I basically have to stay away from him. Again, I could see the reasons for playing him. His price is juicy, but man, he's not the play for me today. So yeah, gonna be off Bubba Wallace today. But I do see the value in playing him just because of the price. But 15% ownership on Bubba Wallace is a pass for me today. He's going to be on it here today. Jake, look, he can race well. I want to be clear. I've been playing him a lot this year, and if he races well today, that would be painful. But yeah, just I can't keep losing money playing Bubba Wallace, and I'm not going to play. Okay, this is a super speedway. Sure, I'd play Bubba Wallace, but not on this track. Ross Chastain, fade for me today. Chastain ownership looks like it's going to be. I've been playing a decent amount of Chastain this year. But 15% Ross Chastain on tracks he hasn't looked good at all on. Starts in 33rd, 2022, finishes in 33rd, and then in 2021, starts in 17th, finishes in 35th. He is a very aggressive driver, and when you race with his style on this type of track, it's very hard to fathom he finishes this race clean. So yeah, I just think Chastain is due for an accident or two, and is likely going to cause a few accidents today, or at least cause a few spinouts. So yeah, I don't like Chastain today. He can get there. I just think the only way he gets there is he somehow dodges a bunch of accidents that he's usually right in the heart of. Paul, I know you're asking where Coop is. Coop just couldn't make the show today. It's really what it is. I do expect him to be back next week. It's Easter. Give the guy a break, Paul. All right, so who else we got? Dirt Race Davenport. So I'll get to him in a bit. But that basically touches on guys who I think could actually win the race. So value plays, right? Jonathan Davenport. Coop has him at the top of his value plays. He's going to be popular, first of all. Okay, he's going to be sub 25, 26% owned, which to me is fine, right? He starts in 21st, 6,600. To me, makes him very playable. I will definitely have some Davenport. I don't know if I'm going to be that high on him though. That's a lot of ownership for a guy that's going to be racing in a heavier car and not having I guess what you can call top-notch equipment. So yeah, he has the skill set to win this race outright for sure. I do think he's got some added variables though going against him today. So I get it. The price makes sense. He's probably the cheapest guy that makes the most sense for place differential. I'm sure some people play Ty Gibbs. I'll talk on him in a moment, but to me, he makes sense. Like to me, like 7K ish. If Stenhouse was priced in this range, I would have definitely played a lot of Stenhouse. But Davenport at 66, he's definitely playable. I mean, the idea that like Justin Haley at 6,900 is going to see, how much ownership is he? So Justin Haley's going to see 28% ownership. I don't know. I get he's got the experience, but I'd rather have Davenport than Haley today. Because like anything crazy can happen, and people are going to try to find cheap plays. So I get it. But the guy I like the most out of the three, and these are all in Coop's playbook as well, by the way. Mike McDowell. Like I really like Mike McDowell today. I think he's going to be a hard button to press for some. He's starting in 13th. He lacks the place differential. Likely going to be sub 10% or less owned. He's a guy who's performed well on these tracks to date. He starts in 17th last year. He finishes where? He finishes in 9th, likely good enough to land him in the optimal. And then in 2021, he starts in 16th, finishes in 12th. Just consistent, right? And at his price tag, you don't need the dude to do a lot today. At that price, the dude finishes in. I mean, shit, if he T10s, he likely, I mean, barring unless anything goes crazy with the laps led spread out or any place differential just goes nuke, top 10, McDowell likely finishes in the optimal today. So, yeah, I like McDowell. The idea that he only has to move up a few spots to get there and keep it, and he's proven to be decent on these tracks. So, yeah, I like McDowell over the two of them, and more of that has to do with the leverage pivots in terms of ownership. So, definitely like McDowell over Haley and Davenport. I will have a mix of the three. The least amount of Haley. Todd Gilliland. Look, he's 5,300. He's 2,500 on FanDuel. I mean, arguably, some might call it I don't want to say a free square, but 2,500 is nothing. On FanDuel, 80 to 1 to win, starting from 15th. What is his ownership? I mean, so here's what's crazy to me. At 5,300, starting from 15th, Todd Gilliland is going to be sub 20% owned today, 18% owned. McDowell, half the ownership, 2 spots higher. Um, doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, um, definitely prefer McDowell over Gilliland. Gilliland makes sense in certain regards. I can't argue it. I mean, what are we talking? 2022, he finishes. I know he didn't race in 2021. He finishes in 17th. He started in 23rd and finishes in 17th. You know, good, right? I mean, nothing to write home about, but good. So yeah, ultimately, Gilliland I think is tough to love when you encompass the ownership and whatnot, but the pricing does make sense, right? In terms of that low 5K range, like I'd rather play him than Ty Dillon. I'd rather play him than I mean, who else is around him in this price range? Like Austin Cindric. I mean, I guess I'd rather play him than Cindric. That's the thing, right? Because if you're looking for lineup construction, who you can play in that 5K range, right? Like nobody's really going to play Corey LaJoy, are they? I mean, so yeah, I mean, I guess people might play Corey LaJoy. People are nuts. But yeah, ultimately, he's probably the best play in that 5K range. So while he's going to be 20% owned, I can see why people would play him, and I will have some Gilliland as well. All right, so Gibbs ownership. Ty Gibbs, yeah, perfect segue because Ty Gibbs is the next guy up in Coop's playbook. Um, Sub 80 to 1 to win the race, right? Ty Gibbs, 80 to 1, starting from Ty Gibbs, starting from 2030, 6,700, seeing sub 15% ownership. Likely to have some Ty Gibbs. Not going to go crazy. I think he ran this race last year. Maybe not. He did not. Very limited data for him in relation to these races. So yeah, I don't know. Um, Definitely not somebody I'm going crazy with today. Um, yeah, I don't know. The guy doesn't race ever on dirt, so you know, I guess. But he's also like there's also the question marks about his car. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't not a guy I'm going to be overweight on for sure. I can't say without to completely fade him, but definitely a guy I'm not going to be overweight on. He also mentions here Noah Gragson and Ty Dillon. Um, Ty Dillon is a tough one overall for me to figure out. 25% ownership today, 5,200. Again, I already mentioned it. Out of the 5,300 guys, I'd rather play Gilliland over him. Ty Dillon has some place differential upside for sure. I'm sorry, Ty Dillon, but I mean, I don't know. I just can't envision him. Like he'd need a lot of attrition to go his way. And let's be honest, he's not allergic to accidents either. So yeah, overall, as silly as this might sound for right now, Ty Dillon is likely going to be a complete fade for me, and I'll likely just play Gilliland instead. But I definitely could see the reasons for playing Dillon. He's there in the back. He's the only guy in the back of the pack that you'd even feel comfortable playing in this price range. So yeah, ultimately, not gonna have a lot of Dillon at all. But I definitely see why people would play him. Noah Gragson's also on this list. Um, yeah, I don't know. Starting from So he's a few $100s more than Ty Dillon, starting from 36. I will say this: Noah Gragson's not a bad pivot off of Ty Dillon. If you're going to be way overweight on Ty Dillon, people aren't really going to click Noah Gragson's name today. So at least it gives you a good pivot. But yeah, ultimately, likely not going to have either. All right, so some key fades that Coop's going to mention, and we'll wrap the show up. So Coop does not really like JJ Yeley, which is not really a hot take by any means, but he is fading William Byron with me. I like that. Cindric, Priest, Eric Jones, he does not like. So Eric Jones is, I will say this about Eric Jones. The price point for Eric Jones is interesting. Okay, I don't like the idea of Eric Jones either, but this is the cheapest he's been all year. Eric Jones is not racing with confidence by any means. But I mean, Eric Jones is starting from 18th. He's 5,900. And when you look at, again, we talk about pricing and who's around you, right? I mean, no one's going to really be clicking Almirola's name. Some people might click Cindric's name. We already mentioned some people might click McDowell's name. Gilliland's name is going to get clicked. I don't think anybody's playing Gregson. People will play Ty Dillon. I just find it interesting, right? Like, so when we talk on schematics on ownership, right? Like 25% of people are going to line up to play 5,200 Ty Dillon. But then when you scroll up to Eric Jones at 5,900, 10% of people are going to play Eric Jones. Like, I just don't understand how that makes any sense. Like, at least Eric Jones, you know, you have decent upside. I know he's struggled on these tracks. Like, he starts in 14th in 2022, and where does he finish? He finishes in 24th. I mean, it's not crazy bad. It's not great, but it's not crazy bad. In 2021, he starts in 24th. He finishes in 9th. That's plenty good. I just think when you talk on upside of drivers, like Eric Jones is not getting any love today, and I don't quite frankly, I don't understand it. I think he's a good option today in this price range. So yeah, I do like. Excuse me, I do like Eric Jones today at that price range, and I definitely will have over the field on Eric Jones. And I want to be clear, I'm not expecting the guy to nuke today by any means, but when you talk on upside and how he's priced today, he makes a lot of sense to play. So yeah, gonna have Eric Jones and gonna be over the field there. Erica Marola, I agree with Hoop. Easy fade, Burton fade, Harvick fade, Truex fade. Denny. Oh look, my boy Coop agrees with me on the Denny Hamlin fade. Love that. And he's got some few interesting fades as well in there. Allmendinger, I don't know. You know, to me it's similar, right? Like Allmendinger's price, 63. It's a pretty cheap tag for him overall. He's been getting priced up recently. But to me, this is still not as egregious as Eric Jones being 59. Very likely going to have very little Allmendinger, if any. I mean, let me see what he's even projected ownership. Yeah, I mean, 3%. It doesn't even. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. 3% could attract some people to want to play him because for leverage, but not myself. I guess I just find it interesting, like how these projections get there, right? It's like Ty Dillon gets projected for 25% ownership, $1,000 more, starting up 3 positions higher is AJ Allmendinger, and no one's going to play him. It's always interesting, right? How this stuff works in NASCAR. But so that basically wraps it up. I will have a core up today for Run Pure Sports. I don't usually, but I will have a core for tonight's race. So if you're a member, you will get the core. Lucky you. But obviously for mentioning on this show, look, Suarez is just a lock today to me. He doesn't get there. He doesn't get there. It's just that you talk on this slate, 250 laps. You talk on the scoring. You talk on his price. And it's also not crazy if Suarez finds his way near the front that he does his best to lead laps. He's shown this in both races, right? Like in 2022, he finishes in 12th, leads 64 laps. In 2021, he finishes in 4th and leads 58 laps. It's very clear Suarez wants to do everything in his power to get to the front of this race. So, but that aggressive style could cause some issues for him, but time will tell, right? So we'll see. But needless to say, obviously the show ran, 54 minutes, longer than I thought it was. But obviously, I can talk, so shit happens. But look, obviously a lot of data to sift through. Gave you guys a lot of juicy content there. Big thank you to Coop and his playbook. It obviously makes it easy for me to read off and run through my own takes with it. Jason, hopefully he's back next week and we could talk, have a full panel again for next NASCAR race. And again, as I've been saying, folks, this is a dirt track. Don't go crazy with anything. Like, stay within your means. A lot of crazy shit happens on these dirt tracks. We've seen it 2 years in a row now. So just stay above water. Obviously take a few stabs. If you're building lineups with guys that are going to be sub 40, 50% owned, make sure you stick a guy that's going to be sub 8 to 9% owned in that lineup. But needless to say, I will have the core up for Run Pure later today. Told you guys who I'm high on, told you guys who I'm low on, and read through Coop's playbook. I wish you all the best. Yes, we the people, Izzy, Brittany, happy Easter. Happy Easter to everybody. And look, I'll be back next week with another show, obviously Coop and Jason as well. But yes, stay safe, everybody. Enjoy your Easter with family, friends, or whomever. Or maybe you're just home gambling alone. Do whatever, ask for every share, right? But yes, be back next week with more NASCAR content, more baseball content all around. Check us out, runpuresports.com. Get my core and the whole folks core for the race later tonight. Always nice to have a night race, even though you'll see me tilting on Twitter later, I'm sure. But yes, without further ado, stay safe. Enjoy your Easter, everybody, and Run Pure.